Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a true masterclass on human growth and the foundational building blocks of child development. Whether you're an educator building a lesson plan, a psychology enthusiast, or honestly just fascinated by how we become who we are, getting a grip on these core learning outcomes is an absolute game changer. We're going to unpack the key terms and theories of human development and translate them into a really clear, structured journey. Let's get right into it.
Now, before we get into the weeds, I want you to really chew on this core question: how exactly do genes and environment work together to affect a child's growth? It's not just some philosophical debate, it's literally the ultimate scientific puzzle of nature versus nurture. Keep this question running in the back of your mind because every single concept we cover today is a piece of that exact puzzle.
So here's our roadmap for the day. We'll kick things off by defining child development, then we'll break down the 4 developmental domains. After that, we'll map out the stages of the life cycle, dive into the great nature versus nurture debate, and finally, wrap up with fulfilling basic human needs. All right, Section 1, defining child development. Let's start big picture. When we use the term development, what are we actually talking about? Well, it's this overarching, gradual journey. It definitely doesn't happen overnight. It's the steady, sequenced process of change, moving through distinct stages, starting from even before a person is born, and then rolling right through infancy, childhood, adolescence, and finally adulthood. Basically, it's the unbroken timeline of a human life. But if we toss the word child into the mix, our focus narrows down a lot. Child development isn't just casually watching kids grow up. No, it's the rigorous scientific study of children all the way from conception up to adolescence. That means we're actively applying scientific principles, codified theories, and methodical observation to figure out exactly how and why kids change over time. It's a precise science, and that's exactly the lens we'll be looking through today. Moving right along to Section 2, the 4 developmental domains. Think of these developmental domains like a giant interconnected puzzle. For example, when a child learns to walk, they're experiencing physical development, right? That makes them more mobile. Well, that mobility feeds straight into their intellectual development because now they can explore and figure out new objects. And then that newfound intellectual exploration feeds right into their social emotional development because it changes how they interact with others and brings them a sense of joy. So they aren't isolated little boxes. It's a continuous, interacting chain reaction. So here are the 4 core domains you need to know. First up is physical. That's the growth of the body and the development of your large and small motor skills. Second is intellectual, so cognitive processes, learning, basically how we understand the world. And third and fourth are social and emotional. These are actually often grouped together as social emotional development, which covers how a child interacts with people, groups, and how they process their own internal emotions. Again, we categorize them to make it easier to study, but out in the real world, they're interacting in beautifully complex ways every single day. Which brings us to Section 3, stages of the life cycle. Let's map this out chronologically. It's kind of like a time lapse of early life. It all starts with the prenatal and neonatal stages, covering conception to that super crucial first month. Then we jump into infancy and the toddler years, 1 to 36 months, which is just an era of explosive physical and cognitive growth. From 3 to 6 years, we hit the preschool stage. Then come the school-age years from 6 to 12, where the social and intellectual domains really take the spotlight. And finally, from 12 to 18, we've got adolescence. Scientists use these stages to establish age norms, basically the typical windows when we expect specific developmental milestones to happen. Now, here is a massive caveat, and honestly, one of the most important takeaways from this whole lesson. Each person is entirely unique, yet we are more alike than different. If you're an educator or caregiver, you absolutely have to remember that these stages are a guide. They are not some strict, unbreakable rule for every single child. You're going to see developmental acceleration, where a kid performs like they're much older, and developmental delays, where they perform like a younger child. The stages are a map, for sure, but we always have to respect the unique territory of the individual child.
All right, let's get into the heavy hitter. Section 4, nature versus nurture.
The classic debate. We've got 2 massive forces constantly at play here. On one side is heredity, or nature. This encompasses every single trait inherited from a child's blood relatives. On the flip side, we have environment, or nurture, which is the sum total of all the conditions, situations, and stressors surrounding that child. For decades, scientists went back and forth. Does biology dictate our destiny, or does our environment shape our potential? Well, modern child development tells us it's actually an intricate dance between the two.
To wrap our heads around the nature side of things, let's look at a pretty wild number: 23,000. That is roughly the number of genes babies inherit from their biological parents. These genes, little sections of DNA inside our cells, determine our fundamental body features, our innate intellectual abilities, and even some foundational social-emotional traits. Think about that. 23,000 individual pieces of biological code, completely setting the baseline for a child's potential.
And this is where things get really fascinating. Nurture dramatically enters the chat through something called the epigenome. The epigenome is basically a layer of chemicals that can literally turn those genes on or off. And guess what triggers it? The environment. Things like a child's diet, their stress levels, trauma, their living conditions, all of that communicates with the epigenome, which then tells those 23,000 genes exactly how to behave. It definitively proves that nature and nurture aren't enemies. They're a collaborative effort. A child's environment can quite literally unlock or suppress their genetic potential.
And finally, Section 5, fulfilling basic human needs. You've probably heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It argues that human motivation operates on a very strict sequence. Step 1, basic needs: food, water, shelter. You can't do anything without those. Step 2, safety and security, feeling protected from harm. Only then can a child move to Step 3, love and acceptance, that feeling of belonging. Once they feel loved, they actually have the motivation for Step 4, education and skill building. And finally, if all those lower steps are rock solid, a person can reach Step 5, at the very top, self-actualization. It's like building a house. You literally cannot skip steps. The foundation has to be secure before you can build up.
I really want to zoom in on that top tier, self-actualization. What does it actually mean? It means to grow and feel totally fulfilled as a person. It's a lifelong process of pursuing your talents and truly understanding the world. And honestly, this is exactly why education matters so much. Education is the primary engine helping kids, and adults really, gain the skills they need to reach this ultimate state of fulfillment. Complete self-actualization is an ongoing journey, but our goal as students of child development is to help every single child build the foundation they need to even start that pursuit.
So as we wrap up today's explainer, I've got a slightly personal question for you to chew on. Where would you place yourself on Maslow's hierarchy right now? Which of your needs are being fully met, and which ones maybe aren't? By applying these frameworks to our own lives, we become infinitely better at supporting the developmental stages of the kids we might teach, raise, or care for one day. Think about your own foundation and how it shapes your potential. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep exploring the incredible science of human growth.